Hey, everybody, welcome to the Writing Room. It's Bob Goff here. I'm with Kim Stuart, and we've got a friend today. Kim, how are you today? Let me just check in with you real quick.
So happy to be here. This is going to be a great conversation.
Yeah, since the last time we visited, I turned in a book, which is like launching. It's like this. I don't know if it's a Viking burial where you light it on fire and just let it do its thing. But speaking of launches, a good friend, Dave Crowder, is on. He's launching a new album, The Exile. David, welcome to the Writing Room.
Why, thank you very much. And I guess we should set it on fire. Now I know how you do it. Now I know how the secret behind a successful launch is you burn it.
Pyrotechnics.
No, it's really
Float it away.
true.
Watch it. Yeah. Watch it.
I've found that when I write a book and launch, I don't know how it works in the music business, but by the time it comes out, I mean, you recorded your songs a long time ago. You're still playing them. I told my stories a long time ago in writing, and I'm still talking about them. But I've got my head so much in the next book that I have to kind of just like, it's a way to guard my heart from somebody saying, I don't like that book that just came out, because I'm like, me
You're
neither.
Like, great.
I'm on the next one.
Yeah, this next one's going to be way better. Yeah.
I'm like, Dad. So tell me how that works. You have this new album. It's kind of like book writing, except instead of 62,000 words, it's several hundred words and some refrains and choruses. So tell us, what does it feel like for people that are tracking with you and your work to release another album? There's been a ton of them.
Well, I love that you were just explaining, because I guess book writing, you're about a year behind, right?
Yeah, that's the gestation period.
You're about a year ago. The music deals, it's like we're about 3 months ahead of time. You got a turn-in date. It's usually about only 3 months ahead of time. So it's still pretty fresh. However, to piggyback on what you're talking about, typically my writing though for the album is begins probably a year prior. So you've got all these thoughts and stuff, and I have always worked in triplets. I sign a 3-record album deal, and so I figure in most any contract you enter into, I should at least have some sense of what I'm going to give to the person that I'm contracted to. So I've always thought, okay, I kind of have an idea of what I would like as an outline, and it's for 3 records. So this record cycle that I'm in the middle of, I had the loose framework or structure, not a blueprint by any means, but just some guidelines of promise, exile, and return. I kind of wanted to tell that the meta narrative of what we encounter in scripture, that there's this moment of communion, and then all of a sudden we're displaced. And so use the Israelites as a metaphor for myself. We wrote the first album, which was Promise, and turned out to be called Milk and Honey. And what a beautiful season to be writing a song about promise than being stuck in the middle of pandemic, completely isolated in what felt like it was super easy to talk about. Surely there's something better than here and now, So that worked out perfectly. And then so I get into the exile, and I wanted it to be really earthy, feel more horizontal, telling of things like, what does it mean to be displaced? What is it here and now to be a human alive in relationship with the divine, but here on planet Earth in the middle of things? It doesn't take much to look around and see things are broken. We're not where we're supposed to be. We're seeking that communion once again, and talk about it. What are some things that it feels like to be here? And so that for me, it's very horizontal. I'm always trying to figure out, is this song something we can all sing together in a liturgical sense, or is this more me preaching, so to speak, where there's still dialogue, but it's more like, this is kind of what it means to be stuck here right now. And those were the songs that were intended. And then I would be in these sessions where I'm like, this is a really great song, but it doesn't go on the exile. Like, this is really confusing, because usually my outlines work out. I'm usually able to get in the room and be like, this is what this is supposed to be, and look what we did, what we set out to do. And then I would leave these rooms and I'm like, that is not what we set out to do, but I love it. but it just doesn't fit. And I'm not like a John Foreman or somebody that just has like 80 songs sitting around that just didn't make the cut.
Right.
I tend to work on stuff that winds up being consumable. And this was just really confusing. And it took me way too long to be having been at this for so long. It took me way too long to figure out, well, the faucet's on and the exile and the return are coming at the same time. That I wanted the return to be all vertical, liturgical, we can all sing this together to God songs, and that was my intention. So it should have dawned on me very quickly that, well, this is for the return, but it took probably, oh gosh, I'm halfway through the exile and I'm sitting on half of the return. And it was so, when you're talking about being on the next book, so in the middle of this album, I was already on to the second album that follows up, and it was so fun. That discovery was so fun because, of course, he would give you songs to sing together in the middle of displacement.
Excellent.
And it was just like I was a part of the meta thing I was trying to say. I was actually metaphorical in my creating process.
Ooh, that's
and I had
cool.
I had no, there was no intelligence or cleverness on my part that was happening. It was just the faucet was on. This is what was coming. And it took me a while to puzzle it out, I guess you'd say.
I really like that idea. I think it's why you find out if the kid's a boy or girl before you pick a name, right? Otherwise, you end up with a guy named Sue, which makes for a great album. But what I want you to do is explain to us what it feels like to be misunderstood in the middle of doing that. So people who write books, who write music, people will think it means one thing, and they'll go on and on about like, oh man, this was such a powerful song about, and then you go like, that's a great idea. Wish it was about that. People will talk about a book that way. They'll say, oh yeah, this is the meaning behind his story of whatever. I go like, that's an awesome meaning. I wish I had thought of that. It's way better than what I had. Explain to us, because authors, writers, creatives, all confront that. So do you just flow with it? Just go like, that's awesome, whatever it meant to you?
I tend to fall where you just felt like I was like, that is brilliant. I wish I were brilliant. Yes. It's usually what it is. It's like, and the astounding thing is the amount of time people have to discover these things. I'm like, wow, that took a leap of imagination to get to there, and that must have been consumptive as far as time goes. And I just appreciate that they would give themselves to what I've made so thoroughly.
Yeah, sometimes I just think that there's someone sitting in a windowless room that particularly, I think I said something in a book about carving a new groove, kind of, and then go Grand Canyon on it. And you see where we're going with the metaphor. And they said, this is a evolutionist theory of life. Because the Grand Canyon, it's a metaphor. And when it says milk and honey, it doesn't mean actually honey, it means dates. But like, and not dates like going out with somebody, like they hang from a tree. And not things hanging from a tree. It means, but people can get odd. And so what I found is to just come with the most generous explanation. And then come up with the most realistic explanation. And then come up with the most optimistic explanation. So most generous explanation is that they were more engaged than I was in the phrase. The most realistic explanations is they probably have some stuff that they're working out. And then the most optimistic is that I hope they like the next story better. So, and it just kind of takes all the crazy out of the room. Kim, you write both fiction and nonfiction. How do you deal with that when people misunderstand you?
Well, I think the most difficult is when the people know you well. I find I do much better if it's just someone that I have not invested in or know very well or knows me. The most hurtful is if folks know you well and talk to you about what you have done in a way that maybe is hurtful. So I don't know, Bob, I've learned so much from you about who gets to hold the microphone, who's holding the megaphone in the way that I live, and who's weighing in. Not everybody gets the same weight. Not everybody gets the same volume of a voice. And I think that's a process as we create and as we make new things. Crowder, I'm positive you've had to learn this, right? Who really gets to speak into what you're doing? And then what do you hold fast to? If we start right out deciding everybody, it's free reign, the table is cleared and anybody can speak into that, gosh, that's going to paralyze us in what we do next and even how we feel about what we've made. So I'd love to hear from you
That's
too.
great.
How do you decide who gets to say what and what you hold fast
That's
to?
great. Well, I'll tell you this as a personal example. The last thing that I put out amongst the public was a Christmas album, and it was my first full-length Christmas album, and it was called Milk and Cookies. As a follow-up to Milk and Honey. So
Yeah, I like it.
It was too easy, like this. I have to do this. I have to do the Christmas seasonal album. But
Totally.
on the bill, we were trying to. I was trying to help folks. Yeah, growing up, I grew up in a very devout Christian family, and so Santa Claus and Jesus were always super, super close together. It's very confusing as a child,
Right.
who's bringing the gifts this year?
Who's who here?
Well, I was so throughout the album, there's a lot of levity and fun and playing with Saint Nick. He's a saint. My goodness, he's got to know Jesus even better than I do. Surely,
Yeah.
It's Saint Nick. So I'm trying to say clever, funny things like that I think are hilarious. Well, one song is called the Elf Song, and it's about elves, and it's a workers' rights song. It's my Bob Dylan.
I think it's Jackson Brown laying a track over that.
It's my soapbox moment, and I think it's hilarious. And immediately though I get letters and I get a letter in the mail that's like, I don't believe in elves.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I don't believe in criticism.
Well, it's from my mom. The letter's from my mom, and so I'm like, I raised you better. And Kim, I can identify that hurt. It hurt really bad. It was so hard to take from my mother.
Oh my goodness!
Oh,
I think
man.
getting it out there. I think if I've read the scripture right, the first time that it said the Spirit of God was dropped on somebody, it was a creative. And I really love this Genesis story of God uses creatives to bring things out of us so that we aren't being told connect all of these dots together, but there's so much license within there. You're not trying to control what you create. And God doesn't try to control what he creates. He just creates, and he doesn't compare what he creates. He just creates. And then what we try to do is control it, compare it, and I think learning as an author, as a singer songwriter, to just have that balance to say, to your point, Kim, who does get the microphone? There's a particular country I spent a lot of time in. I'm not going to throw Uganda under the bus, but you just never let go of the microphone, because somebody will always start by saying, well, I really don't have much to say. And seasons are changing. Your clothes are going out of style. So I always hang on to the microphone. And so I ask them what they have to say, and they don't relinquish the microphone. So I'll give it to Jesus, but I'm not going to give it to Billy, because you never know when you're going to get that microphone back. So I think a point for whatever forum you use, whatever method to get your creativity out there, writing words, writing lyrics, just be careful about who you give the microphone to. And once you do, most generous, most realistic, most optimistic. That framework is helpful, because otherwise my lesser angels, my lesser elves will be speaking into my ear. Oh, I'm going to get feedback on that one. So I think too. I almost want to bait people a little bit. Come on.
I can see that. I can see that look on your face. I know where we're going.
That's hilarious.
Bring it.
I think what you said earlier, though, Bob, is really one of the best ways to guard against all the stuff that can get in your head. Is if you're always in forward motion and you're always called to something new and something, there's always new wine, and there's not scarcity in this whole story.
That's right.
And
That's it.
so if your hands are still open, you're not hanging on to what you did previously, and it doesn't sting. Like you said, it doesn't hurt when you're already like, yeah, you're exactly right. Still working, still growing.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about that in a long while because I'm already on to this new thing over here. I think that is a really easy way. If you're just standing still, hanging on to something that you just love so much that you had made, I think you're in a dire position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really
Open
Yeah, I
to a
like
lot
that
of that.
idea, the promise of a new creation, like new day, new Crowder, new day, new Bob, new day, new Kim, new day,
That's
new
it.
you. And so we get these do-overs, and that isn't this hall pass for living a nutty life, a disconnected life, but that the power of grace, just like to just say that. And then I'm a
Amen.
really orthodox button-down guy when it comes to my view of scripture. That's just Galatians 1. I'm thinking if even an angel of heaven comes down and gives you a new gospel, like just run out of the room.
Yeah.
But you got to kind of know what the real one is so you can know if that's a new one or a different one. And so I'm a big fan of knowing what scripture says, and yet I write books and I never put Bible verses in it. Somebody called me up and they said, I don't think there's enough Bible verses in your book. And I'm like, read it more closely. There are no Bible verses. Pick a round number. And because I'm writing, and I'd be so interested in hearing from you and Kim, who is in the chair. I'm writing to the guy who I would describe as church adjacent. So he's not mad at the church. He may not be he's the guy that's working at the tire store. And I just want him to smell the cookies in the oven, know that he's welcome, know what this thing is about, but to just invite him. I'm not trying to control what he does. This Matthew 16, like, who do you say I am? And it's flesh and blood doesn't reveal it to you, but the Spirit of God. So who are you writing your lyrics to? I'm writing to the guy at the tire store. He wouldn't know what a Bible verse is.
That's great. I feel most of the time I'm writing for the people in the church that are similar to how I came into the church, which is there's a lot of baggage. I had church history, grew up in church, as I said, but trying to help a lot of people set some stuff down. And so I'm seeing it in me, and most of the time it's because I need whatever has hit me. And so it sounds very internal and selfish, but it's the hope is that the way I've been constructed and put together, even the sounds that I'm finding, it's a reflection of the people I'm around, I think, as well. Like, it's how I'm put together is dependent on my time and space and where I'm spending my time and energy. And I'm always about the discovery. So I'm consuming constantly. And I know consumption's a bad word in the church. Unfortunately, it's how we're made.
You're also curious. You're like curious.
Yeah. And I feel like I search for these things to consume to stay alive, almost like I need something to move me. And then what I want to do is expel and I guess translate what that meant in terms of spiritual formation, is what my deal is. So it's very internally focused, but with an external out. And I see myself in the pew, so to speak, but also as a seeker, as a searcher, as somebody wanting discovery. And so the lexicon, I use church language in a way that I feel gives handles to people that need the handles to go, okay, I know what he's singing about. This is church stuff. And at the same time, finding words that are unexpected so that the guy I sit next to on the plane, or the guy who's just as much an influence as my preacher, that is not in the church, and I've been trying to get him in the church for years. So it's a evangelical attempt to help people that are also in the church, and that's me.
You know what I really like, if I was to describe what I gather from your music, it's like that you make faith and words really accessible. I love that you're using that choice of words, like put a handle on it, because if you've had a suitcase and the handle breaks, and you can't pull it anymore, all you can do is bear hug that. And so you take all the luggage, all the hurt, all the woundedness, all the experiences. And if you don't have a handle, you end up hugging it. And then everybody you meet, they meet your luggage. They don't meet you.
No,
Because
that's
you
great.
just got no other way to carry that other than right in front of you. And so to find words that draw people in, what are you thinking about when you're writing your words, Kim?
This is part and parcel of what I'm always trying to do. I think all three of us are doing this, trying to put fresh language on familiar ideas, old ideas, ancient ideas, that sometimes we look around and think, well, we're the first to think of this, which is incredibly arrogant. And so, but we do use the same tiny list of words to describe beautiful, deep, profound mysteries. And so if we keep that little, as you said, the lexicon, Crowder, if that is so tiny, it actually does a disservice to what we're trying to do and learn and think about. So I'm always turning things in the light and trying to find new, fresh language to talk about things that are really familiar to me, or things that we throw out with too much of a cavalier attitude. And what happens is, as writers, as creatives, when we learn to kind of turn in the light, look for new ways to say familiar things, or to kind of uncover things that we have lived with a long time, our readers or our listeners, their ears perk, because they're tired too. They're tired of the same old version, and so familiar with those words that they can't hear them anymore. We do that, right? If we're so familiar with the words, we can't hear any of the meaning underneath. So actually, Crowder, when you say this is almost an indulgence, or you said it was selfish, or introspective, kind of, is that what internal? I think that's very external, because when we're focused on what's happening in our own heads and hearts, learning to turn these things in the light, there's nothing more outward than that, because everyone around us is weary of that same old stuff too. They're weary and they can't hear it. So I think it actually ends up to be a gift to the people around you if you do that work in your own heart first. And if you really push into what's new here, what's a new word here. And of course, Jesus was the ninja at this, right? He would use really familiar ideas to blow the doors open. He didn't stand and give a bullet point list about how he felt about sanctification. Snooze. He said, there's this guy, and he took all of his inheritance and stomped on the heart of his dad, and he took off, and the crowd leaned in, right? So he did the same thing. How can I make this fresh to a crowd who's weary? I think we do that.
David, you hold two things in your hands. On the one hand, you are incredibly curious and fun and mischievous. You've got a twinkle in your eye, like mischief is never far away. I don't know what. It's just like I love that part of it.
Right?
Yeah, you do. And then at the other hand, I've seen you be just really sensitive and introspective and deep and all that. I've seen a nameless friend, you at a point of desperate need, just being there and just like on it. We've sat on rooftops together and blown bubbles and had these like really important conversations. It felt like I just felt like I've got another camera angle on you. And so how do you balance that in, like, take this album, Exile, that's coming out, balance that fun and whimsy and curiosity and wonder, and at the other time, like there's a deep well of like caring and being there for people that are in a really awful thing and just saying, I'm going to wade right in there with you.
Well, I think Kim nailed so much of what I would say to that. It is. I feel like Jimmy Buffett is R.I.P.
Oh, awesome.
Well, it's you want to take them to the ocean, but you gotta. So the handles are like flip flop, sand, beach, sunshine, waves. You've got things that immediately you're singing a Jimmy Buffett song. You're going to the ocean, but you've got to figure out ways to do that over and over and over. And I think that the whimsy of it is the search for those new ways to see and new ways to expound on the ocean. And so I think that I love the way I'm put together for the fun side of it, but it does take a lot of, so that people know I'm in scripture every day. Yeah, I don't know, because I need to be. So that's what I'm saying is internal. I need that.
Yeah, right.
And I know it will come out in the stuff I'm creating, but I'm not, that consumption is most of the consumption is to fortify myself so that I then can be used. And so I think that other side of it is when you encounter grace, when you know what it means to have failed and find redemption and hope in the middle of that, because there's this person that was so countercultural as to say all the upside down things, and to know that's the guy that you're following, man, it's like having that good bite of steak and you're across from your friend and you're like, you got to try this. This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so it's the search for that bite. And then it's you can't help yourself, but go try this. This is it right here, man.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And so I think that's the whimsy and the internalization all in once. It's the search and then the discovery that changes you, and then the hope that what you're sharing is that same thing that hit you. And that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping it hits the person like it hit me.
Yeah.
I like the idea of reminding people about who they are in their circumstance and not telling people what to do.
Because that's Jesus right there, right?
Yeah. So just like this, you hold up the mirror and you remind them of our deep need for grace and love and acceptance that like Jesus offers. And then at the same time, not telling them what to do, to say, I just trust God is so powerful that he could sort that out. Matthew 16 again, right after he nails it, Simon Peter says, you're God. And Jesus' response, don't tell anyone. I love that. And I don't think it's keep it a secret. It's show people, don't tell people. And I can tell you, you've shown me over just, I don't know how many years since we met in a street somewhere outside, just nothing but grace and courage and kindness and sensitivity. You're not a egotistical guy. You're just really humble, but yet you haven't had your spirit crushed down. I just love that you're going to be doing something super unlike. Do you remember? It must have been 20 years ago. We were at the Tacoma, whatever it is, convention center. Yeah, we rented out the place. I had to put up my house as collateral to rent this place.
It was so
and then
good.
I said, we had this idea. We're just going to get everybody together, charge them a ton of money, and then just give all the money away at the end. We put a big bowl with all this cash in it. And we said, if you need some money, just take it. And if you have some, you can put it in there. And then we left it out overnight for the staff. It was awesome. Not our staff, I mean the convention center staff.
That's awesome.
And there was something really, it was like a new economy. It's like we are not trying to control this. What we're trying to do is be rivers, not reservoirs.
That is great.
And so I think this new album, if you guys, Crowder doesn't need anybody to buy his albums, but give this one a try, because the Exiles, having had a peek at what's behind the curtain on that, I think it's going to let you connect with the words a little bit more. David, thank you so much. I love you, buddy. You're just a
it's so
bright
good
spot
to see
in my
you.
life.
I have to tell you, I don't know if you remember, we stayed up so late at that Tacoma deal. I had an early flight the next morning, and I went to bed with my clothes on, sleeping on top of the comforter with my suitcase right next to me, because I knew it was going to be like 30 minutes or whatever. Well, all of my bandmates are down there in the lobby. I'm never late, and they're like, "Where's Crowder? Where's Crowder?" So they go up to my room, knock. No one comes to the door. They go downstairs to the front desk. They're like, "Hey, our buddy is supposed to be here and nobody's answering the door. Can you let me in?" And it took them all, I don't know what they had to show to prove that I was their buddy, but somehow they got the guy to go open the door. And my friend is like, "Dude, I'm terrified that we're going to go in and you're going to have left us and you're going to Jesus." And he says, he walks in the door and they see me and after they've been banging and yelling, and I'm just sleeping with my arms folded, fully
They
clothed.
got the defibrillator
Oh
out.
yeah. He was like, "Bro, I knew you were gone."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No, it's the Bob effect.
He shook me. He shook me, woke me up, and immediately I was like, "Okay, no, I got this. Okay, watch this. Watch. And then he said, I looked him in the eye and go, "Yeah, I'm not going." Laid right back down and went to sleep. So I stayed in Tacoma a little longer. Yeah.
Oh man. And who
That's
wouldn't want to?
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, you've been listening to The Writing Room. The new album is The Exile. It's releasing at the last day of May, and make sure you grab that. David, we love you, buddy. Keep loving people. Keep loving Jesus. Keep pointing us in that direction. Kim, as always, thanks a million. You guys,
Thanks,
we'll talk to
guys.
you next week.